Hi friends, I have gotten some requests to make some more Trello videos, and this is another board that I use pretty often. I use it with my clients so that they can see where we're at in the process, and I also love looking at it for myself just to have all of the information in one spot about the transaction, and so that I can see the deadlines and what's been done, what still needs to be done. So, super excited to share my buyer template with you today. I am in the process of redoing my listing template and like the seller side, like the seller board. So, I will probably make a video about that later on. If you are interested in seeing that, let me know in the comments. But I do also have a video on my weekly schedule in Trello, which it's like my email. Like it's literally a tab that I always have open every single day on my laptop. So that is how I do my weekly schedule. So be sure to check that one out. And then I do have another one that's more like CRM based, and it shows who's under contract, who's actively looking or actively listed on the market. My pipeline of upcoming people for the year or the year after. And then I do have a leads column and then my closings. So I go through a lot of different things in those other videos. So be sure to check those out. The transaction board one, or not transaction board, this is like the transaction board. The people and properties one that I will link up here is a very popular video actually on my channel. So I look at that pretty much every day too. So I highly recommend going and checking that one out if you don't do anything else. So check that video out for sure. But let's dive in. First, you're going to need to make a Trello account. Trello is under like Atlassian or Atlassian. So it might kind of bring you to that as well. But make sure you sign up for a Trello account. Start with free, see if it meets your needs. And if you need to bump up to pro, then you can decide to do that. I don't know if it's called pro, it might be called something else. But I do just have the free version because I am mainly the only one looking at this board in my workspace. So if you want to add tons of different people on and have them collaborate, you might want the paid version. But for me, the free version works for everything that I need to do. So first of all, you're going to have your account, and then we're going to come up here to create, and you're going to create a new board. So this entire thing that you're looking at right here is a board. And we are going to then build this out. So up here is your title. I just have it called buyer template because this is what I make copies of when I have new buyers, and then I can fill out all the information for them. So this is kind of like my template that I work based off of so that I don't have to make this thing every single time that I have a new buyer. So highly recommend once you get it down to something that you really like, make copies of it. Just have a template. Don't reinvent the wheel every single time. You will just go crazy. So we're going to talk about the columns that I have in here, and I will explain how to make things and how I make it very visual appealing with the dates and the tabs. So first of all, you're probably going to come up with a blank board. And these columns are actually called lists. So my first list is initial to-dos. These are all of the things that I request that my buyers have done before we go see homes. And so I like to have them all broken down. I like to have resources for them. I actually developed these Trello boards after a transaction where my sellers felt like they needed a little more communication from me. And I pride myself in being a great communicator. So at first I was like, oh, dang, okay. But then I took it as a learning lesson. And I was like, how can I just take my communication to the next level and just amp up my client experience? So then I thought of this. I actually, for a second, thought about making an app, but I was like, that's a little too much. So I ended up just going with Trello because it was something that was already there that I could tweak and make my own. So, first of all, we have the buyer guide, reviewing the buyer guide. You can add attachments on here as well. So, once I open up this card, that's what each of these little things are called, cards. I can go to attachment and I can choose a file from my computer. So that is how I got this one. This is probably my old buyer guide, to be totally honest. So once I click on it, I can open it up, which is really helpful just to have it all right here. Actually, it kind of looks like my newer one, so that's interesting. But I have my buyer guide right here, and then if I just escape out of here or press the X, actually, it'll take me back out of here. I can click anywhere to get out of here. So I typically do that instead of the X. I just will click out. And then we have buyer questionnaire. So I have a questionnaire that goes out to my buyers, which I am also in the process of redoing. But that just gives me some more insight. I also have a link to Google Forms so they can fill it out electronically if that's more convenient for them. And if anything, if you already know Trello, hopefully this just gives you some ideas of maybe how to increase your client experience and make it a more pleasant and seamless process for them. So these are just a couple of ideas of some things that I have implemented with my buyers and sellers over the past couple of years. So next I have a pre-approved card, and this has like frequently asked questions. So like, why would I want to work with a local lender? What's the difference between working with a local lender and just like a national bank like my credit union? And then I have the attachments, lender recommendations. I send a lot of this stuff over email as well, but I do like to have it here just in case they're like, wait, where's that? I can't find the email. Then they can reference back here and find it every single time. Then I have a card for the initial meeting with myself. I really don't have a lot of notes on that, to be honest, but I do like to have it in here just so I can mark it as complete and I can put a date on it. So let me walk through how I would do the tabs. And if I already have this open, you can't see because of this monster thing. But if I already have this list open, this column, if I come down here and add a card, I can just add anything. So I'm literally just going to write anything and press enter. So now I have a new card there and I can drag it wherever I want. I love how user-friendly Trello is. It's so nice. I can click on it to open it up and add more of a description. And then I can add attachments. I can add, this is where like you're going to find most of your labeling things. So I'm just going to use the same card since we have it open. I can add a checklist. So I can just add a plain checklist and I can start typing. And then when I press enter, it gives me another item and another item. And then once I feel like I'm done, I can just say cancel. And then I really like how it looks when you check things off. It tells you the percentage of your checklist and how completed it is. It's so satisfying because I use this for my weekly schedule. And once I check everything, it turns green. So I love that so much. We're just going to, well, we'll leave it on there actually, just so you can see what it looks like from like off of this card. Then we can go to labels, and I do have these in here already. I have complete, in progress, and TBD. So if it's like a final walkthrough, for example, and we're kind of waiting until it gets closer to schedule a time, then I would put TBD, for example. If we just like haven't heard when the appraisal is going to be yet, maybe I'll put TBD, maybe I'll put in progress. It all just kind of depends. So you'll likely not have anything in here when you start, but you can create a new label. And we are just going to call this label example. And then I can choose any color that I want. So I'm going to choose this light purple. And then we're going to say create. Now you'll notice that the label is up here. So I can do label example. I can click multiple as well. So if there is a reason that I would want multiple, I can have multiple, but I'm just going to click label example for now. Then we're going to add a date. So I like to add dates for deadlines and if there's a meeting or an appointment that's supposed to happen. And also just like the date that things were completed sometimes. So I'm going to go in here and choose any date. We've got August 2nd of 2024 in here. We can even put a time in here and set a reminder. I really don't rely on the reminders very much, so I cannot really speak to how reliable they are and how much I use them. But once we have our due date in there, you can also just choose it right off of this calendar, or you can go here and just type it in. So then I can save that, and now it'll have it due date unchecked. Hopefully you can see from over here, it'll say like August 8th, but this one pops up in green, which I really like. I kind of wish that they all were a little more obvious. But if you want it to turn green, sometimes even if it's not done yet, I just check it as complete because I want it to be green. I want it to be very obvious. I don't want to have to look for it too hard. So I just click it as complete most of the time. And then if I decide that I just want to get rid of this date, I can come over here and say remove, and then it will remove my date. So I'm going to add that date back on just so you can see what it looks like when it's green. And honestly, that is mostly everything that I do with it. Adding labels, adding a checklist, dates, attachment. I don't really add a cover, but you can. It'll like pop up right here and then it'll show up in the card as well. You can also move it or make copies of it. And if you archive it, the thing I love about Trello too is that when you archive things, you can still go back and find them. They're not deleted forever. So now we have this nice pretty card right here that started off as just a label of anything. So now we've got label example, we've got our label on there, we've got a checklist on there, it tells us how complete it is. This is a description when it looks like those little lines, like some words. And then we've got August 8th, we've got our date in there. And then if you want to get rid of this, you can just click on that pencil icon and do archive. So then I'm just gonna archive it. Hopped around a little bit. So we've got buyer guidelines. These are some guidelines that I have written where it just helps the process go a lot smoother. So what to do if you want to go to an open house and I'm not available, and sign in with Marissa as your realtor kind of thing. So it just goes over guidelines to hopefully avoid some of those things in the process where you're under contract and your buyer buys a new car. So yes, and we'll get to that in a second about this column. But then we have the buyer agency agreement. And after all the commission lawsuits, this is becoming more prevalent to have the buyer agency agreement signed. We have always been encouraged to have a buyer agency agreement signed in Wisconsin and in offices that I've been in. So I'm very thankful that that has not really changed. I don't really put anything in there. I guess just some important notes, I guess. I don't actually put the full contract in there, but once you have it signed, you could go ahead and put that in there. So your buyers can reference it at any time, and then you have it on file. Then we've got the custom email search. This is something that I have to do and set up. So after I've met with my buyers, and we go through a lot of this actually at the initial meeting. So a lot of this gets completed in one day. So I just like to track it though to see what's been done. Maybe everything's been done, but I'm still waiting on e-signatures for the buyer agency. So I want to make sure that I'm on top of everything that I need to be done. Next, I have a column which I don't use super often, but I like to have some FAQs in there. So showings, when should I show up? How many appointments can we schedule each day? How long is it going to take, kind of thing. So I have some frequently asked questions in there. And then the offer is just a little blurb about how I like to go through the first offer at least over Zoom, and then any other ones that my clients want to go through together, we go through over Zoom or in person. But I like to go through the complete offer. I'm not just sending it to them and being like, okay, here are the high points, sign it, good luck. We go through absolutely everything. So that's just a little blurb in there about how that will work. And then accepted offer is pretty plain as well, because I send a next steps email, which is a template. And maybe I will make a video about my email templates at some point. I got the idea from Hustle Humbly podcast. So if you do not already listen to their podcast, highly recommend it. They're so, so good. I've gotten so much like free advice just by listening to them, but you can also purchase their email templates, and they have a lot of other resources as well as a membership that is like a monthly community membership, which is really cool. So then this kind of just directs them to go to this accepted offer column. Now we're going to talk about the do not do before closing. And obviously you could put whatever you want in this column. I like to put a lot of the lender things in here. So don't make any large purchases that may affect getting your loan. like a car or, something big, lots of expensive furniture. Like, don't do that. Don't change jobs. Don't change your marital status. Don't pay off existing accounts unless your lender requests it, and do not switch banks or move your money to another institution before consulting your lender. You can add in anything you want under here. So if you decide that there is something that needs to be there that is not on my example, go ahead and add it in. It is as simple as adding a card, and then if you want to put more of a description in there, go ahead and click on the card and add a description. Or if you have resources that you want to attach, you can attach those. If I wanted to make a copy of an entire list, I'd come up to the three dots and I would do copy list. And now it will just make another copy of the same thing next to it. So if I like the layout of this accepted offer section, for example, and I want to add it to another board, I typically make a copy and then I will say move list and I will move it to an entire different board. So then I have this one is moving, but this one is staying. So I'm just going to archive this. Archive. I can't see what this says. I'll do that after because I don't want to just like archive everything. Next, we're moving on to the accepted offer through to closing. So this is the under contract list. This one is my favorite by far. I pretty much only use this board most of the time for this first column and then this column, the accepted offer one. It is just so nice to have a visual of the timeline. So we've got earnest money, and I put them in order that they're going to be completed. So it is like a nice little timeline. And then I put the due dates on here or the date that the appointment is, and then I'll do complete or in progress. Maybe our home inspection has been completed, but we have not finalized what repairs we're going to need done. So I'll put completed for home inspection and then in progress for contingency due. And same thing with appraisal. Like maybe the appraisal was done on a Wednesday, but we haven't gotten it back yet. So technically the contingency isn't satisfied. So that's why I like to have the appointment itself and then the due date as well. So then I have well water septic inspection, contingency, radon test, radon due, appraisal due, loan commitment. Loan commitment, I just have the deadline. And then final walkthrough and closing. If you have other contingencies that you want to add into here, obviously, by all means, but I like to put all the contingencies that we typically have in Wisconsin that are not like super uncommon to see. And then if, for example, like it doesn't have a well or septic, like it's just city water and sewer, I can just go ahead and get rid of this. So I'll just archive that so it's not in the way, and then the buyers aren't looking at it being like, wait, what is that? just get rid of it. But I like to keep everything on my template so that I'd rather delete than have to add new stuff or like forget what I'm supposed to add, So then another cool thing that I do with closing is once we have the closing location, so the title company, you can put locations on here as well, I believe. At least you could before. Now I'm not seeing it. So that's interesting, unless it's under dates. Well, I'm telling you, you could before. Maybe it's under custom fields. Anyways, I don't know that there is anymore, but maybe actually, let me see if I put in my address for the office. Oh, West Hill Boulevard, Suite 1, Bubbleton. Okay. I guess not. Well, sorry about that. Used to be able to add a location, which was pretty cool. So I could put the date and the time in there so the buyer knew, and I would also send it in the email. But we would have it in here and the location would be in there as well. So I guess that's not in here anymore, which is not a huge deal. Good thing I am almost done because I'm running out of battery. But that is pretty much all of the accepted offer / under contract column. And then I have a post-closing thing. So I have reviews. This is probably old too. but I have reviews on here and all the links to the places. If you only have time for one, leave it on Google, please. So I just put Google at the very top, and then I have links to everywhere else. And I do send that in an email as well, but I do like to have pretty much everything on this board in case people need to reference back. And it just is nice for talking points, especially when you're in your initial consultation. You can kind of just go through the Trello board and touch on little bits and pieces more if you need to. Then we have focus on energy. This is a Wisconsin thing. It might be a thing somewhere else too. I'm not sure. But focus on energy specifically in Wisconsin. If you're an ambassador, you can provide some benefits to your clients that are green and sustainable. And so it's super cool. I just have some information on there, and I could put the attachment to the flyer if I wanted to. And then I just have a little questions. Do not hesitate to reach out. So I have my contact information in there. You can also change the background of the boards, which I like to do so that I can tell the difference between each board. You could just do colors, or you could look up photos. So it's kind of fun. You can just look through here and pick something that maybe matches your client's aesthetic, or something that something different from the boards that you already have. So that is everything for my buyer guide, for my buyer template, my buyer board in Trello. And I do have a seller board in Trello, which is very similar. It just goes through like our first appointment, our second appointment, and then under contract. It's got a whole timeline, just like this one. But let me know if you would like to see that one as well. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed, and comment if you have any questions or reach out to me. And please like this video if you did enjoy it, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.